So it's been nearly 5 years since Final Fantasy VII Remake was announced at E3 in 2015, and it's here. We can now pick it up and we can play it. And I wanted to give my impressions on it so far because I can't put the game down right now. I'm really enjoying it, and I wanted to give a spoiler-free impression or take on it before I get to some of the late-game stuff that has been said to be pretty wild and, in some instances, for some people anyway, story-breaking. So I wanted to give my thoughts now before I get to that point. That way I don't accidentally allude to or hint at anything that could spoil the game for you, because I want this to be as spoiler-free as possible when it comes to the story. Because while people are saying, oh, the game's been out since the 90s, how can you spoil it? Well, you'd be surprised. Like, this isn't what people seem to think it is with Final Fantasy VII. A lot of people are looking at this right here as being a straight-up remake completely of Final Fantasy VII, but there are some liberties taken here to where I'm looking at this as, they've said this before in interviews, but a reimagining or just an entire redo for the series when they have all of the source material in front of them. Because remember, the lore goes beyond just Final Fantasy VII on the PlayStation 1. They are taking into account everything that's been formed since that game came out. And yeah, there is a lot of other things that they are adding to this game with that universe in mind. I'm also going to show you footage from the first, I'm going to say 2 to 3 hours, because to be honest, the first hour is the demo basically that we've already played with the bombing mission and all of that. So I wanted to show you some stuff beyond that. And in fact, if you look on the back of the box, when you pick it up, you see your 4 characters. Those are the characters you play as, Aerith, Cloud, Barret, and Tifa. And you've probably already seen that all over the internet anyway, so I assume that's not much of a spoiler to know that you play as those 4 in this game. So anyway, let's start with the visuals here. Visually, when I first saw this game, specifically on the PlayStation 4 Pro, playing it right here on my monitor, it looks phenomenal. Like, the character models might be the best this generation, and I'm also thinking of like God of War on the PlayStation, which is right there. But when I get a little further into Final Fantasy VII Remake, something starts to stick out, and I think it might be because the models themselves look so good. Like, the environments are bland or low resolution textures. It's very strange, but they definitely stick out. There's one part in the game where it's like a door from the PlayStation 1 era. It really does not look good at times around the characters, but then they'll do a cut to like a close-up of a character in a cutscene or even in like gameplay at times, and it just looks insane. So it's this weird contrast. I don't know if we'll have a patch at some point that maybe fixes some of that, but I would say this is up there for one of the best looking games of the generations when it comes to the character models, but then some of the environments really pull it down. But it's definitely a great looking game overall, and because of this, paired with the music in this game, it does an amazing job telling the story of Final Fantasy VII, at least what I've seen so far. I mean, some of the music in this game that kicks in, whether it's with a boss battle or just a point where they're trying to get a little extra emotion out of you while you are seeing scenes where they're trying to tie characters together, where it's backstories they're introducing or just relationships they're trying to build in front of you, it is absolutely astounding sometimes. Really, the music just is perfect for some of these scenes, and I really like what they've done here. Some of the remixes are, I think, pretty good as well. There's, I can't talk about some of the boss battles, but man, there's one boss battle that's like, is 8 or 9 hours in, and when that music drops, you know it's serious. It is some good stuff. And really what they've done here is they are taking a 6 or 7 hour chunk of the Final Fantasy VII game that takes place in Midgar, and they are expanding that over 30 to 35 hours. People have said they've gotten over 40 out of it. I need to see myself, but they are expanding that quite heavily as they look towards expanding on the Midgar, I guess, scene itself, right? They have the different parts of Midgar. You start like obviously the slums, and really, I think some of the parts that they've done here are great. And then there are times where I'm playing through a dungeon where there are convenient problems, we'll say. It's not like unique to Final Fantasy VII Remake. We've seen several games do this, right? Where you need to flip 3 switches because the power happens to be out, right? Something like that. It's not new to an RPG or a JRPG or even pretty much any video game, but that is something I've noticed at times. It's like, oh, there are these convenient problems that you have to solve to get to a place that was basically a transition, right? Like a cut to black to then fade in kind of thing in Final Fantasy VII on the PS1. It turns into an entire dungeon, and that is kind of how they're getting some of this time out of it. But to fill that time while you're going through the dungeons, you of course have gameplay, and this is a very, very strong spot for the game, specifically the battle system. I think it is very fun. I think it is extremely satisfying when you start comboing everything together, and unfortunately the demo didn't quite show us everything. Specifically, as you get more party members than just you and another person, like Barrett, for example, you throw Tifa in the mix, or Aerith, and all of a sudden it really opens up. And that was the coolest part to me. You will throw commands around, so naturally, as we talked about with the demo before, you have a button that will just basically swing your sword or do spells very rapidly to build up a stagger gauge, and then after you explode that gauge, the enemy will fall down and you can start doing more and more damage. You'll also have your active battle time or act time battle build up, whether you're waiting, or it'll build up faster as you are doing combos and hitting, which then gives you the ability to fire off different abilities that you have or skills or magic, or even use items. And it really does come together to where it feels like a combo system that you are stringing together to take down large, what we'll say, spongy enemies. I also want to talk very briefly about the progression system. Of course, you have your leveling, you gain experience, you level up, and you continue forth there. Your HP goes up, attack, all of that stuff. But then to go beyond that, we usually expect something else, whether it's a skill tree or, in this case, we are leveling up our weapons. That's what happens. You get SP, and then you take that and you spend it on any weapon that you get. Each person gets kind of their own unique weapon, whether it's Cloud's swords, right? Or Tifa kind of has her knuckles that she gets. And as you go through and you gain SP, you'll move around what kind of looks like a little like a sphere grid, I guess. Although I guess it'd be closer to the grid on Final Fantasy XIII is what I would say looking at it. But you go through, you spend your SP, and you get different abilities that are specific to that weapon, whether it's more HP, more attack power, or percentage-based bonuses based on even your HP, or 10% more damage if you hit somebody from the back. And you'll go between that and different areas on this little map that they have set up. As you level up and your weapons level up, those will also kind of unlock, giving you better and better abilities. And the one nice thing is your SP seems to accrue, so that if you get a new weapon, you don't have to then earn all that SP all over again. It'll just pull it up, and it's like, okay, well, at this point you would have had 50 SP, right? So we're just going to drop it on that new weapon that you just got so you can take a look at it. You also have Materia in this game, as we would expect, and it levels up very much the same way. As you get AP in battles, it then adds that AP to a bar for each Materia. It levels up, and it will do different things, whether you go from better fire spells, right? Or you have different things, whether it is your elemental skills will go up from there based on your materia. There is a lot of really cool materia here, which also includes summons that people are really excited to see come back. Fortunately, those don't really seem to level up, but you still get them, and it's pretty neat doing so, as they have a whole system for that I won't spoil for you. That said, I think I would have liked maybe a skill tree or just something else that's specific to the character and not the weapons that character gets. I don't know if there was a reason they went this route other than, hey, every weapon is good in some aspects and bad in others, and they wanted to more or less expand on that. I'm thinking that could have to do with these things carrying over to the next game. That they might be kind of thinking of that right now. But I would have liked to have seen just a skill tree of some kind. I think that would have been really, really cool. But for now, you got your weapons that need to be leveled up. You have your main character's level, your materia, and I guess for the most part, it comes together okay. Now, the game itself is broken up into chapters. So as you get to certain points, it'll be like, oh, chapter 3, chapter 4, but you'll have different times where you can explore, which is pretty neat, right? And they'll even throw in side quests, but something that kind of annoyed me at the time, and I think it's okay because we get to go back, is that you get to a point where the story wants to progress, and it says, hey, if you go beyond this point, you can't do anything that was left here. And yeah, that's going to annoy people who are completionists. They will feel the need to stay there and do all of that stuff. I've heard that we most likely will be able to go back to these areas and kind of collect different things, because there are collectibles to get. But that threw me off a little bit, and it reminded me that it is more or less a hallway that's you're kind of getting pushed down through the story. We're not to the point in Final Fantasy VII on the original where it opened up yet. So we're still kind of being pushed down a corridor of the story right now, and that won't sit well with everyone, and I get it. But I did see some questions online about the story for this game, and I will say, because some people ask me this, if you've not played a Final Fantasy game, if you have not played Final Fantasy VII, can I go buy this and play it and have a good time? Yes, you can. I think this game will be more impactful, definitely more impactful, if you had played the original Final Fantasy VII, and it will be extremely hard-hitting if you also played some of the extended universe games. Think of Dirge of Cerberus or Crisis Core, even the cell phone games and stuff they did. But yes, if you were at least somewhat familiar with the original PlayStation 1 Final Fantasy VII, you will get a blast, a kick out of seeing Midgar in its current form here on the PlayStation 4. And you know what? If you're really into the story and the lore, you want to go pick this game up immediately, although I guess you probably already did, because there is some, even early on in the game, very interesting story elements here that they are adding in. And I was unsure of how it would be handled with the story. Do they need this kind of time to set these characters up, to give us better insight into them, to expand the universe so that when, we all know, the big events happen later on, it will feel like they really matter? And yes, yeah, they are. They're giving us a completely different look at Shinra. They're giving us a completely different look at Midgar, and even the characters inside. So I am really excited with what I've seen so far, and to be honest, I just want to play more of it to see how this is going to finish up. And then, of course, the inevitable wait until the next game. That's the other thing that does bother me, because the story they're telling here with the pacing has been so good. I realize I'm going to get to the end of this, and if it's after Midgar, as it's been said, I know there's some pretty crazy stuff that happens in Final Fantasy VII, at least the overall world and the story, that I would like to see in here. So that's the other weakness to me. While I understand at this time, after playing it, why they went this route with just having the first 6 or 7 hours here, I want to see some events that happen later on, and I don't want to wait what could end up being 3 or 4 years or something. I want to see it now. But those are my thoughts so far on Final Fantasy VII Remake. I am really liking it. I can't put it down. It's like when you get a good book, for example, and you're reading it and you can't put it down. Or you find a show that you really like on Netflix or something and you keep binge watching it because you can't stop. That's the feeling I'm getting from Final Fantasy VII Remake, and that's the feeling I like with my video games. Let me know what you guys think about Final Fantasy VII Remake, though, down below if you managed to pick it up and got some hours put into it. I'm sure we'll talk about it tonight on the Spawncast as well, so come on by. Not looking to spoil anything, obviously, because some of the stuff here, I would have been really frustrated having it spoiled for me in the game, so we'll keep that to a minimum, definitely on the podcast tonight. But thanks, guys, for watching. Make sure you like the video on the way out if you enjoyed it. Dislike it if not, and I'll see you next time.